Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Murillo and I'm a first year student at the School of Arts and Architecture here at UNC Charlotte. For this presentation, I'm going to talk about the multiple assignments that led up to the culmination of our final project. Before we start, there are a few definitions for you guys to keep in mind. Highlight an outstanding part of something that draws attention. Segment, a single part of something that has been divided. Juxtaposition, two things placed in close proximity to create contrast. Light, the natural agent that makes everything visible. Shadows, the product between an object and a rays of light. And to the right, there is a picture of my final project that represents all of these definitions. To start with this project, we use multiple media and techniques to sketch hands to have a better understanding of its anatomy and the multiple poses that we could achieve with it. Later on, we picked one of these hands to further develop it into our project. I personally picked this hand because I saw a lot of potential at the time of making a wire hand. So then I started studying the wire and how the wire casts shadows, and I made multiple iterations of my wire hand in order to appreciate each one individual capability of casting shadows. I picked this specific wire hand because I liked the way perspective played a big role on the way you see the wire, and how when you see it from another perspective, it starts becoming abstract. And then I started taking pictures of the relationship of the wire and the position of the light source and the shadows that it casts depending on the position of the light source. And the drawings that I made further emphasize this understanding of the light source and the shadows. Later, we segmented our hand and started studying the multiple frames that these segments could create for our hands. For the next step of our project, we started researching how our hand worked in an enclosed space and how to assemble this closed space using balsa wood. So I started creating multiple examples of how these corners could assemble both digitally and physically. My results were this GIF and these instructions that illustrates the way we assemble my design. My design idea was to have a heavier bottom and a lighter top in order to emphasize the hand that was going to rest at the bottom of the box. I built my physical model and I started observing how the juxtaposition of the wire and the wood started highlighting different sections of the hand. The purpose of this moving part of the box was to have different segments of the hand being framed by the box itself. My next step was to research how to attach the cladding to the box and how I could use the cladding in order to further emphasize the segments that I wanted to show for the hand. When I finalized my design for the cladding, I realized I had to make some slight adjustments to my design of the box in order to see my original idea come through. These are the section cuts of my final design of the box with the cladding on. Later, we were tasked with designing a space in order to display our box, and I had a few ideas for this space. My first idea was to put the box at the back of the space in order to emphasize the shadows that it created on the wall. My second idea was to put little edges at the front and back of the pedestal where the box stands in order for the people to interact with the box without having to move the whole box. My third idea was to make an enclosed space in order to fully appreciate the shadows that the wire hand casted in both the cladding and the walls of the space. And this is a case of one of the many proposals of how a person could move through the space. To end, here are some pictures of my final box with the cladding attached and how the lighting source and the shadows interact with the cladding. Something to point out, when the sliding part of my box moves from side to side, the light source also moves alongside it, and this changes the way the shadows are projected into the cladding. Here is a better close-up of how the light changes when the sliding part of the box moves from side to side. These are a few pictures of the progression of the developing of the box and how it went from just a simple sketch to the wire hand to the box with cladding to the space where I would display the box into my final physical box. Thank you all of you for listening, and I hope you guys liked my presentation.